In the last class, we have discussed about decision tree induction, how to take the attributes for the decision tree, how to split according to the attribute values, right? Today we'll discuss the last concept of this decision tree induction, that is characteristics of decision tree induction. First characteristic, decision tree induction is a non-parametric approach for building classification models. In other words, it does not require any prior assumption regarding the type of probability distribution satisfied by the class and other attributes. So here we need not to have the prior assumption for constructing the decision tree. It is a non-parametric approach for identifying or for classifying the models. Okay, so we'll be given with the training example. Using the training example, we are going to create the decision tree depending on the classes given. Okay, here we need not to assume anything, presume anything here. Instead, whatever we have for the training example, depending on that, we have to create the decision tree. Finding an optimal decision tree is an NP-complete problem. I think while studying design and analysis of algorithm, you have heard about this NP-complete problem. That is, if a problem can be solved using brute force approach completely, it is called as NP-complete problem. Okay, brute force approach means we know that depending on the definition of the problem and the values given for the problem, we can solve the problem. Okay, we can find the solution for the problem. In brute force approach, that is all the possible solution we are going to find out. Similarly, here also, we can find out all the possible decision tree that can be built, and among that, we can find out optimal solution. Third one is techniques developed for constructing decision trees are computationally inexpensive. Techniques which we are using for the decision tree, for constructing the decision tree, are not expensive. Computationally, it is inexpensive, making it possible to quickly construct models even when the training set size is very large. When we have large amount of training set size, then also it is computationally inexpensive. Once a decision tree has been built, classifying the test record is extremely fast with the worst case complexity big O of W, where W is the maximum depth of the tree. So once a decision tree is built, classifying any example, it is extremely fast. Okay, with the worst case complexity of big O of W. I hope you remember asymptotic notations, big O, omega, and theta. So here big O of W, where W is the depth of the tree. Okay, W is the depth of the tree. Fourth one is decision trees, especially smaller sized trees, are relatively easy to interpret. Decision tree which are smaller in size are relatively easy to interpret. That is, we can easily understand the decision tree, that is how it is built. The accuracies of the trees are also comparable to other classification techniques for many simple data sets. So accuracy will be better when compared to other classification technique when we have small sized trees. Fifth one is decision trees provide an expressive representation for learning discrete valued function. I hope you know the difference between discrete valued function and continuous valued function. Continuous valued means we'll be having the classification values continuous. Okay, that is numerical value, floating point numbers. Some continuous value will be having like price of the item or salary of persons. Okay, so here discrete valued means countable number of classification values will be there. For example, yes and no, only two values. Okay, for example, if I consider marital status, single, divorced, or married. Okay, three values we have. So these are discrete valued functions. So this decision tree provide expressive representation for the for learning discrete valued function. They do not generalize well to certain types of Boolean problems. So certain types of Boolean problems means we know that we will get true or false, 0 or 1, yes or no. Okay, Boolean problems. So one notable example is the parity function. Parity function is that values can be 0 or 1 when there is an odd number. When there is odd number of parity, the value will be 0. When there is even number of parity, it will be 1. Okay, so it depends on the number of Boolean attributes with the value true. Okay, accurate modeling of such a function require a full decision tree with 2D nodes, where D is the number of Boolean attributes. Okay, so generalizing using that is certain Boolean problems, it is difficult with the decision tree. For example, is this parity generator function. Sixth one is decision tree algorithms are quite robust to the presence of noise, especially when methods for avoiding overfitting are employed. So when we have noise in our examples, these decision trees are fast to identify that. Okay, even with the presence of noise, decision tree algorithms are quite fast. When we employ that is to avoid the overfitting. We'll discuss overfitting at the end of this module. Okay, you'll come to know what is overfitting is. Okay, when we have employed avoiding overfitting, this decision tree algorithms are quite robust. Seventh one, the presence of redundant attributes does not adversely affect the accuracy of decision tree. Okay, presence of redundant attributes does not adversely affect. It will not affect the accuracy of decision tree. First, we'll see what is a redundant attribute. An attribute is redundant if it is strongly correlated with another attribute in the data. Correlation means it will be having some relation with another attribute. One attribute is having relationship with another attribute. That is, changes made to one attribute will affect another attribute also. That is, correlation means it will be having some relation between these two. So if you do make changes to this attribute, it will change other attribute also. Okay, I hope you are getting. So one of the two redundant attributes will not be used for splitting once the other attribute has been chosen. So if two attributes are redundant, if one is chosen, another will not be taken. Okay, another attribute will not be considered. If attributes that are not useful for the classification task chosen during the tree growing process, it will result in a decision tree that is larger than necessary. So if attributes that are not useful for the classification task, for example, if you are considering whether a person will return the loan or not for a banking classification task, if we consider a person will return the borrowed loan amount or not, we can check that using the attributes. For example, if I have an attribute date, does date depend on this? Actually date doesn't depend. The date loan taken date will not depend on the, that is, we cannot use it for classification task. Such attribute must be eliminated. Okay, such attributes must be eliminated. For example, date of birth. Depending on the date of birth, I cannot classify whether the person will return the loan or not. That is not required there. Okay, so certain attributes will not be useful for the classification task, like date, any date, for example, loan taken date or date of birth, for example, any date. Okay, so if I consider that, it will not be taken for the classification task. So what happens when we take such an attribute? It will just increase the size of the decision tree. It will just increase the size of the decision tree, which is unnecessary, which is not at all required. So we can use the feature selection techniques, okay, in the beginning, that is in the pre-processing step. In the pre-processing of the training data, we can use the feature selection techniques and we can eliminate the irrelevant attributes from the list. Okay, that is the 7th one. And 8th one, since most decision tree algorithms employ a top-down recursive partitioning approach, the number of records becomes smaller as we traverse down the tree. So decision tree algorithms use top-down recursive partitioning approach. That is, if you choose the first attribute in the first level, it will not be taken in the second level. So every time the tree grows, the number of attributes available for tree growing process will be reduced. Okay, since most decision tree algorithms employ a top-down approach, so number of records becomes reduced. It will be smaller as we traverse down the tree. As we keep on constructing the tree, the number of records available for tree construction will be reduced. At the leaf nodes, the number of records may be too small to make statistically significant decision about the class representation of the nodes. So at the end, where we have to end it with the leaf node, when we have very small number of records, it is difficult to classify which classification we have to give for the nodes. This is known as the data fragmentation problem. Okay, when we have less number of trees for classifying at the end, for labeling the nodes at the end, this is called as data fragmentation problem. One possible solution is to disallow further splitting when the number of records falls below a certain threshold. For example, if we required 50 records for classification, okay, just an example I'm telling. If we require 50 records for classifying a problem or for labeling the node at the end, it is disallow. Don't allow further splitting. Don't split further. So set a threshold. For example, 50. Set the threshold. When it falls below this threshold, okay, stop splitting so that we can get the required amount of records for classifying at the end. Okay. So 9th one is a subtree can be replicated multiple times in a decision tree. So this is shown in the figure. Below figure, you can notice that tree replication, it is called as tree replication problem. The same subtree can appear at different branches. Okay, same subtree will be there in the different branches. This is called as tree replication problem. This makes the decision tree more complex than necessary and more difficult to interpret. Okay, sometimes it may enter into infinite loop also, because same subtree we have multiple times. Where to identify? Whether to identify it on the left side of T or whether to identify it on the right side of R, the left side of R. Okay, so it is difficult to interpret. Such a situation can arise from decision tree implementations that rely on a single attribute test condition at each internal node. So when we are comparing only single attribute for each internal node, that is for P also I'm checking only single attribute. For Q I'm checking in single attribute. For S I'm checking single attribute. For R I'm checking single attribute. When we are having test condition on the single attribute for the internal node, this problem may occur. Since most of the decision tree algorithms use divide and conquer partitioning strategy, the same test condition can be applied to different parts of the attribute space, thus leading to the subtree replication problem. So we know that in divide and conquer technique, usually recursive divide and conquer technique we use. In the divide and conquer technique, usually will be having recursive function. So partitioning will use the same test condition again and again. For the partitioning, we are going to use the same test condition again and again. So it will create this tree replication problem. So 10th one is the test conditions described so far in this module involve using only a single attribute at a time. What we have done, we consider single attribute and we are going to check what is the value of that, and depending on the value of that we are going to split. right? As a consequence, the tree growing procedure can be viewed as the process of partitioning the attribute space into disjoint region until each region contains records of the same class. So you can notice the figure 4.20. This is the example of decision tree and its decision boundary for a two-dimensional data set. You can notice that each rectangle or each square space, whatever we have, it is having the classification of the same type. Okay, it is having the classification of the same type. You can notice that. So here we have all the values which classify it as a triangle. Okay, this is circle. So two partitioning values we have here, two classification values we have. One is circle or dots and another one is triangle, right? Another one is triangle, and each partition, that is rectangle or square, you can consider it is having same type of values. That is, here in this region we have all the circular values. In this region we have all the triangular value. Here also we have all the triangular value. Here we have all the circular value. You can notice that the border between two neighboring regions of different classes is known as decision boundary. Okay, so here you can notice that this is called as decision boundary. That is dotted lines, whatever we have, this is the decision boundary. Okay, dotted line, whatever we have here in the figure, it's a decision boundary or rectilinear. Okay, it is rectangular boundary we have that is parallel to the coordinate axis. Okay, rectilinear means it is parallel to the coordinate axis. For the x and y axis, whatever the decision boundary we have, it is parallel. Okay, it is parallel. So you can notice this boundary is parallel to x axis. This boundary is also parallel to x axis, right? And this vertical one, it is parallel to y axis, right? It is parallel to y axis. The decision boundaries are rectilinear, that is, it is parallel to the coordinate axis. This limits the expressiveness of the decision tree representation for modeling complex relationships among continuous attributes. When we have continuous attributes, it is difficult to express like this. Okay, using the decision tree, it will limit the expressiveness. That is, it is difficult to express when we have complex relationship among the continuous attributes. So this is also continuous attributes only, right? So here we have floating point number. So you can notice here we are checking with only a single attribute here. For this node, I am checking only x, right? X less than 0.43, right? So here also I am checking the single attribute, y less than 0.47. Here also I am checking the single attribute, y less than 0.33. I hope you are getting that. That is when we have continuous attributes, it is difficult to interpret. Okay, we have smaller values here. With this example, it is expressive, right? We can identify, that is, if the value of y is less than, value of x is less than 4.43 and y is less than 0.47, then if the classification is yes, then we have 4 values which is classified as triangular, right? And when we have no values, we have 4 values which is classified as circular, right? So it is expressive because we have less amount of attribute, less amount of examples we have here. So it is expressive. But when we have the values like this, that is continuous attributes, you can see in this figure, that is 4.21. This is the example of data set that cannot be partitioned optimally using test condition involving single attribute. It is very difficult. So here we have classifications plus on the lower diagonal and dots on the upper diagonal. you can see that we have continuous values. It is difficult to interpret with a single attribute test conditions. Okay. So an oblique decision tree can be used to overcome this limitation because it allows, that is oblique decision tree allows test condition that involve more than one attribute. Okay. Using oblique decision tree, we can have more than one attribute test condition in the internal node. The data set given in 4.21, that is in the figure shown, can be easily represented by an oblique decision tree containing a single node with the test condition, for example, x plus y less than 1. Okay, x plus y less than 1, both the attribute we are checking here, that is x and y. X plus y less than 1. This is just an example. Okay. Then although such techniques are more expressive and can produce more compact trees, finding the optimal test condition for a given node can be computationally expensive. Okay. Using oblique decision tree can be computationally expensive. So another method is constructive induction. Okay, it provides another way to partition the data into homogeneous non-rectangular regions. This approach creates composite attributes representing an arithmetic or logical combination of the existing attribute. Okay, when we can perform logical or arithmetic operations on the attribute values, we can use constructive induction method. Unlike the oblique decision tree approach, constructive induction is less expensive because it identifies all the relevant combinations of the attribute at once. That is prior to constructing the decision tree. Before constructing the decision tree, this method, that is constructive induction method, it will identify all the relevant combination of the attribute. Okay, all the relevant combination of the attribute, that is before constructing the decision tree itself. That's why it is less expensive. Okay, that's why it is less expensive. In contrast, an oblique decision tree must determine the right attribute combination dynamically every time an internal node is expanded. Okay, in oblique decision tree, what happens? That is, while constructing the decision tree, while constructing each internal node, these attribute combination will be dynamically identified. Okay, these attribute combination will be dynamically identified. That's why it is expensive, because at the time of constructing the decision tree, it is going to identify these attribute combination. However, constructive induction can introduce attribute redundancy in the data, since the new attribute is a combination of several existing attributes. Okay, here introduce attribute redundancy. Attribute redundancy means same attribute will be will occur more than once. Okay, same attribute will occur more than once, because new attribute, it's a combination of several existing attributes. Okay, one attribute, since it is a group of attribute, new attribute is a group of attribute, so each combination may be having same attributes which gets repeated. Okay, so repeated number of times will be having the same attribute, that is called as attribute redundancy. Okay, reason for that is it's a combination of attributes, and before creating the decision tree itself, it will identify these combinations. And last one, studies have shown that the choice of impurity measures has little effect on the performance of decision tree induction algorithm. This is because many impurity measures are quite consistent with each other. Indeed, the strategy used to prune the tree has a greater impact on the final tree than the choice of impurity measure. Impurity measure, I hope you remember, that is entropy, Gini index, and then finding the error. I hope you remember. Okay, so here when we choose the impurity measure, it has very little effect on the performance of the decision tree. Okay, that is in decision tree induction algorithms. Okay, impurity measure that we choose, it has very low effect. It is very less effective on the performance of the decision tree. This is because all the impurity measures are quite consistent with each other. When we have applied 3 different impurity measures, we have seen only little bit differences there with the values. It works similar, right? It works similar. So the strategy used to prune the tree. Pruning the tree means removing the nodes which is making the tree larger. Okay, which is making the pruning means removing. Pruning means removing the nodes. That has greater impact on the final tree. That is performance of the final tree. Greater impact on the final tree means performance of the final tree than the choice of the impurity measures. Okay, pruning the decision tree will affect the performance of the decision tree. Okay, so these are the characteristics of decision tree induction. If you have any doubts, you can ask me.